A lot of questions still, but as we talk about sustainability, this is an excellent segue where we believe that diversity is a huge part of the sustainability conversation. And it is my absolute honor and pleasure to bring about my co-founder from Beyond the Billion, Shelly Porges, to be moderating the next session on how investors into women-led companies are really the game changers you should be investing in. Shelly, over to you.
Great to be with you all here. We have a panel for you, so please say me. Janina, come join me. Here you are. Yeah. Excellent. Yes. And Carmen, please. Great. Well, we have a great group of panelists today to carry on this conversation. But I did want to start out with a question for you, and that is, imagine if you would have applied for a job knowing that you had a less than 2% chance to get that job. If you knew that in advance, would you even bother applying? This is exactly what female founders face when they go for capital. On average, as you probably know, women-founded, co-founded companies get less than 2% of all venture capital. In the U.S., it's actually, U.S. North America, it's been almost up to 3%, maybe another 10% if actually you were added a male partner to the profile. So just think of that as a perspective. And today we're here to talk about the opportunity, really, that we're all missing, I think. The opportunity is that women have been outperforming per dollar invested for years, and we have a lot of data on that. In fact, women outperform per dollar invested with earlier exits and higher valuations. So if you're an investor looking for alpha, what could be better? And it's not because women are actually better than men. I got asked that question very directly at one panel, once from an audience member, well, are you saying that you think women are better than men? And I said, well, no, it's not like that. But when you think about it, when you invest in a male-founded company, you're essentially investing in the normal curve of male-founded companies. You hope that with your great due diligence, you're doing better than the normal curve. But essentially, think about it. At the high end, you've got Steve Jobs, world-changing, life-changing, amazing. In the middle, you've got great guys building good companies. And at the lower end, you've got, men who are starting companies that are not going to succeed. But when you invest in women, if you think about that 2% number, what's happening here is that you're largely investing in the best of the best to begin with, because the rest of them never get to you. They never even get to see your face. They never get through all the hurdles that they have to get to in order to get their companies funded. And it's why we had this strange phenomenon, another data point. In 2021, when we all saw all this capital flooding into venture capital from private equity and hedge funds, and what we saw was this unusual phenomenon. The net result of all that capital, women were still at only, in fact, women had gone down to about 1.9% of all venture capital, women-only companies, and even gender-diverse teams went down. Yet, the absolute number of dollars women were getting was up 70% over 2019, which was the prior record. Why did that happen? How could that doesn't make sense, doesn't seem to make sense. The reason, and the overall market went up by 43%. So women actually outperformed per dollar invested in terms of growth. How did that happen? What was going on there? What was going on is that most of that capital flooding in went to growth stage companies, from private equity to early stage growth, from hedge funds to early stage growth. And as a result, women were getting virtually zero in those very, very big investments. And when you took that all as an average, it netted down. Why were they getting zero in that early growth stage? Well, guess what? If you don't get funding in the early stages of your company, you don't get to the growth stage. You don't even get there. So there are fewer and fewer and fewer, as few as there may be proportionally in the early stages, fewer and fewer in those growth stages to get that capital that was flooding in. So we have these unfortunate criteria that are going on. But on the plus side, here's some good news, and then we're going to turn to our panel and ask them to share what they're seeing. The good news is we're seeing more and more women check writers. You probably heard from Sarah this morning, I think, as she introduced herself and our company Beyond the Billion. We are the first and largest global consortium of venture funds that have pledged and are actually investing into female founders. We mobilized over $1 billion in under 9 months when we launched it, after we launched at the World Bank meetings in Bali in 2018. Much to our own surprise, I will admit, nobody was more surprised, in fact, than we were. We thought it would take us a decade. But then the key question was, yeah, but pledge is one thing. How's the deployment going? And the reality was, and the happy reality, despite COVID, so year 2 of our, we launched in 2018, 2-year cohort, 2020 we measured, and what we saw was over $638 million was invested in almost 800 female-founded companies globally. Today we are on every continent, actually, except Antarctica. I don't think there are any venture funds there, and we continue to deploy. We're at well over $1 billion now. So with that as a basis for saying we can change this, and we're here to say, what do we as LPs need to do to change this? What is the problem, and what do we see as some of the solutions? So let me go and introduce you to my wonderful panel here. I'm actually going to start at the end, if I may, because Carmen Chan, the head of Click Ventures, founder, who is also an ecosystem supporter and actually also an investor in Arctic 15, has been one of our very early supporters of what we've been doing and has been an ongoing, really, supporter, not just in Asia where she focuses a lot of her efforts, but throughout the world. So Carmen Chan, Click Ventures. Then let me introduce, and then we'll ask some questions. Saemi, I have a hard time with your last name. Finnbogason? Okay. All right, here from Iceland, and I'm from Kría Iceland Ventures. It's Iceland's first state fund, right?
First and only fund of funds.
First and only fund of funds.
State-backed.
State-backed, and I'll let them tell you a little bit more about what they do. And then Janina over here, who's my newest friend. We literally just met earlier today, but we have been connected by somebody who we both admire and respect. And so Janina is here from Venlab Capital. So thank you very much for being here. So I'm going to go one by one and ask you to each talk about what are you seeing when you consider investments. And what do you think are the opportunities to advance our ability to invest in women? So Carmen, let me start with you. You want to talk about what you do and how you've done it?
I think, as you mentioned, female founders and female VC are, only like a few percent in the ecosystem. So there's actually a lot of arbitrage opportunity, I would say. Me, myself, I was a female founder before I become a female investor. It's true that, because in the ecosystem, there's a lot of unconscious bias. So female founder and also female GP need to work harder to get opportunity. And that's why, when you can see some female founder or female GP around you, usually they are they hustle more, and they also, if they are a female founder, they raise less money and try to generate profit much earlier. And in the current market, these are some of the companies that, will become more successful in the longer run when you are profitable. And for myself, when I look at investing in GP, I focus on emerging managers because I feel there's a lot of opportunity for emerging manager in the current market. And I look for a manager that can create an ecosystem around themselves. That ecosystem can create a network effect so they can do better investment along the time. And that's one of my criteria. I can give you some example of some of the GP that I look at. For example, one GP that I look at, I like their strategy in creating this kind of ecosystem I mentioned. So they use some strategy through LinkedIn. They get access to founders of their own country. very, very early on. And so they build this ecosystem around these founders, and then they are able to access the first round of funding opportunity when these founders want to start their own company. So this is a strategy that I feel create long-term value and also got a network effect when you have, when you get access and you create relationship with these founders so early. So that's one example.
Great, yeah. Thank you so much. Sammy?
Let's see, where to start. Iceland is a fairly unique place. Small country, but very rapidly growing, mature, growing ecosystem on the venture side. Kría, Iceland Venture Initiative by the Icelandic government, was founded a year and a half ago. So we've made 3 investments in funds so far. We're completely focused on investing in funds focused on venture, so seeds up to Series A, B. The Icelandic system is a little bit unique in the sense that the GP male to female ratio is 50-50. Out of the 3 funds I've invested in, 7 out of the 9 GPs are female. We have 3 female GP team that started their first fund in 2017, raised their second in 2021. Crowberry Capital, actually quite unique for the Icelandic perspective, investing across the Nordics, but based in Iceland and Denmark. Even on the sort of investment committee side, 53% are female. And we were talking about this at dinner yesterday, and I was like, why is this? Why is this such a pivot from different markets, even in the Nordics, I believe? And small society, changes in policy and legislations are quick to be enacted, and then ultimately also role models. We've had females in senior positions in governments for decades. First democratically elected female president in the early 90s or 80s or late 80s. So you have these role models that I think sort of open up the doorway, and it's nice to be there. We haven't solved everything. The idea that there's still a deal flow problem persists today, and it was just recently that actually Crowberry, announced on their LinkedIn, we always thought there was a pipeline deal flow problem until they started to analyze it, register what it looked like. And they realized, okay, 30% of the founders we're meeting with are female. So it's not purely a deal flow problem. Maybe it's these unconscious biases that we all keep in the back of our mind. Oh yeah, it's a deal flow problem. So it's interesting to see that type of fund saying, oh, we missed it, but we're going to do better. We're analyzing what happens, and I think their current portfolio is 40% female and mixed founders versus 60% male founders. So.
Yeah, thank you. And to that point, we have another partner fund, and they found the same thing. And one of the things they did to change their outcomes is any female founder coming in went straight to the top, didn't get screened out by their investment committee. That doesn't mean that they funded every female founder, of course not, but it went up significantly, multiples of what they had been doing, and really began to address and saw opportunities that they weren't seeing before at the final decision stage. So what I think you just did was give us a great pitch for the answer to the gender problem is we should all invest in Iceland, right? Is that what you're saying?
Definitely, yes. Come talk to me later.
Okay, we're game. We're here. Okay, thank you. Janina, thank you for joining us. You have an interesting background for an investor. You've recently joined the investment team at your firm with a background that's more focused on strategy and marketing. Tell us what that allows you to see and kind of what your thoughts are about how do we address this problem.
Yeah, hi, thank you for having me. Just as you mentioned, this was pretty recent conversation. We actually, I wasn't able to meet you guys yesterday at the dinner, but I have a little different perspective to this topic. As a previous SaaS founder myself, I remember in 2017 participating in this accelerator program with 100 founders there, and I was the only female. So that was pretty concrete example of the challenge. And now again, a few years later, I joined Team Vendep actually 18 months ago as a platform and marketing director. So a very different position where I'm right now. I was lucky to realize that we did have several female-led companies, and I was lucky to be able to work with these amazing women, and I completely agree with you when you said that these are really the creme de la creme. They are amazing, amazing women. But I do think that at the end of the day, the female founders, they need encouragement, they need education, and they need communities. Traditionally, in Finland, females, girls are not guided towards careers in technology. That's changing. We see it changing, but that's been the past. And that's the end result is what we're seeing today. And at the same time, women tend to be more modest. Men, well, now I'm sort of making these assumptions, but women tend to nurture their products. They're not overselling, and they are more hesitant in building aggressive growth, which brings us to VC funding. So they need encouragement to found businesses and seek for funding. And that brings us to the third thing, which is the community. All female founders, or at least most female founders that I meet, are looking other female founders. So they feel pretty isolated. They might not have the communities. That's improving as well. We see these communities being created every day, but still they are looking for each other, and they're looking for encouragement and peer-to-peer support. So I think tapping into these communities and supporting them, advising them, encouraging them, and offering them tools to move forward, that's the way to sort of expedite the progress that we see that's ongoing.
Great. Well, that's a good focus on female founders. Let's build on the focus on the GPs. We talked about emerging managers earlier, and we explored that topic pretty well. One of the exciting emerging trends, if you will, that we're seeing is more and more emerging managers, new VC funds in effect being started by women, either women in partnership with men, women on their own, a single solo operator who becomes a fund manager. I will say for myself, I started 6 companies in the San Francisco Bay Area where entrepreneurship is a disease. You probably know that. That was after having had a successful corporate career and exiting Bank of America at the age of 35 and a half, as having been the chief marketing officer that helped co-lead the turnaround of B of A. I don't know how many of you knew, but Bank of America was the largest bank in the US at the time in the late 80s, and they were failing. I was part of that turnaround team as Chief Marketing and Product Officer, where we turned the bank around in 18 months, went from last to first in deposit gathering, number 23, to number 1 in consumer lending in the country. It was the largest turnaround in American corporate history that was not government aided. So Chrysler in the 70s had been larger, but they had been government aided. So anyway, on the back of that, I left to start my first company, started 5 fintechs and 1 media company with 5 successful exits, and I was a marketing person. I wasn't a tech person. In fact, I was pretty tech averse. So if I didn't have the wonderful tech people around me who persuaded me that launching one of the first ever online lending platforms, I wouldn't have done it. So I want to use that example to say, founders are not only technologists. They may use technology to enable their growth and their scale and whatever, but recognize founders are people who see opportunities and are brave enough to pursue those opportunities, and hopefully we are brave enough to invest in them as they do, as GPs, and then hopefully the LPs that we also are, recognize those GPs who are taking, who are seeing those kinds of opportunities in a broader base, a more diverse base of founders. So with that, let me ask you, all of you have either relationships with or are LPs yourself. What do you see as the most exciting development on the LP front that you've seen? Or that you yourself have put in place? I mean, you put in place something where you said, that you're no longer screening out, you're trying to recognize that when the women come in, they go to the top. What other kinds of things can we be doing?
I do think that we see our LPs pushing for diversity. That's becoming value, and I think that's the right direction there. Us as B2B SaaS investor, our sort of investment criteria come from our investment strategy, which is, financial. We want to create as much as return as possible to our investors. However, when the LPs are pushing us towards diversity, it sort of guides us to that direction as well. And for example, hiring me as an investment director, even though I have a very different, just like you, I have a marketing background. All the other investment team members are technical. They are product guys, like they say. And I think I bring diversity of experience and knowledge to the team. And that actually is part of what our LPs are pushing us to do.
I think exactly on that point, as LPs, you can have influence on your GPs, on the way they report back to you, their transparency. Ask them about portfolio construction, on what that looks like on the diversity side, gender diversity and other diversity. Also, ask them about the deal flow. It doesn't take much to add one little section in your CRM system. What does the founding team look like? And then you have that data going forward. And once you have that data, once you start thinking about this in basically every meeting you take, it becomes a feedback loop.
May I add to that? I mean, I was originally hired because our LPs pushed that to us to create a platform for our portfolio companies. And what we do, we actually, because early stage companies, they have 1 to 4 founders typically. And there isn't much diversity in these tech teams. But what we can do, and what we have been doing ever since I joined the team, is that we educate the portfolio on ESG reporting, which is required, and also sort of creating this diversity of knowledge that I was just referring to, because we do believe that diverse teams are stronger, they build stronger companies.
Thank you.
So in my case, I invest in some fund. They are also female GP. So what we did is we actively create some movements, events, or some initiative, really try to change the gender diversity issue in our industry. So there are a few levels of movement that the GP that I invest are working on. So on the female founder level, we have these community and events around the world. At the moment, we have more than 40 chapters. So these events help the female founder connect to each other, and there are also educational elements that help them to get better equipped for the entrepreneurship journey. And then on the other side, we also are aware there are not enough, not only female GP, but not enough female angels. And so that's why we also launched some educational initiative to train more female angels to understand what is venture investing. So that's something that we have been doing with the fund that I invest.
We are just about out of time here, but I do want to open up in case there's one or two questions from the audience. Any thoughts here? Here's a question. You have a microphone for this gentleman over here? Okay, very good.
Thank you. Question, Matthias Kyle from Tesi, which is one of the probably most active LPs in Finland, similar organization to Kría. This is the second day I'm listening and contributing to diversity, and I'm hearing the same stories that women need encouraging to get to the industry. How we get over that women don't need encouraging to get to the private equity VC industry and tech industry, because that's the big issue. That's we're also seeing when we're hiring people. I'm going like yes every time I'm seeing a women overbidding in their salary what they're asking. Typically that's not the case. How we get there?
Well, I think we can all ask ourselves, how are we raising our daughters? It starts pretty young, but anyway, when it comes to the VCs, honestly, go on a playground and see what the parents are saying to the boys and what they're saying to the girls, and I promise you'll see a difference, but I'll let you do that yourselves. I think that providing the opportunities and then seriously being supportive is one of the ways to encourage without being didactic. Now, having said that, Sarah and I always like to say, I'm not disagreeing entirely, but I'm saying women are today over-mentored and undercapitalized. And there are plenty of women out there. And I'll give you just one example. We had a $1 billion+ European fund, and I didn't think the gentleman was going to pledge at all, but the woman who was connecting us was not going to let him off the hook, so he took my call. And he said, Shelly, one thing you must understand is that when women come through our doors, they get treated absolutely equally to the men. And I said, wow, that's fantastic. So how many female-founded companies do you have in your portfolio? Because he had 104 companies. I'd looked at his website, their website, and I couldn't find a one. I thought, well, maybe they keep them on another website. Maybe they keep them on another page. I couldn't find them. So I said, wow, that's fantastic. So after he couldn't answer that or didn't answer the question, the answer to which I think I knew, I said, it may be true that when women come through your doors, face your investment committee, they get treated absolutely equally. But have you ever thought about what it takes for women to get to and through your doors? Now, earlier today, I have had several conversations with some great LPs here saying, they're not seeing their fund managers investing in women and blah, blah, blah. What does it take to get to you or to those LPs or to those GPs? We had a roundtable of some of America's largest foundations. It was at Chatham House. It was closed door, invitation only. We had Ford Foundation, Rockefeller, Walmart, Kresge, Kellogg, and so forth, asking them what they were doing to diversify. And the Kresge, I won't say who it was, but basically had one thing to say. They said, we established some aggressive goals for ourselves, and we realized we weren't making them. And we had to hold a mirror up to our processes and recognize that whatever we were doing, it wasn't achieving the results. And it took us longer than we had hoped, but by doing that, think about that, hold the mirror up. What are you doing today that can be changed? Because you're not going to get different outcomes by doing the same things over and over. So if you're seeking different outcomes, then that's something to add. So those are just some thoughts there on what you asked. Thank you for asking that. Anyway, I believe we're out of time here. I was getting the high sign before here. So I want to thank our panelists very much. Please give them a round of applause here. We certainly haven't solved the problem today, but hopefully we've provided you some different thoughts about how you might address or begin to think about this. And as importantly, please most importantly, recognize women are an alpha opportunity. This is not concessionary capital we're talking about here. And you can ask any of the investors. We have a lot of male investors, and they are delighted with what they're seeing. So I'll just leave it at that.